But my son was, when he was in high school, he wanted to be military, so he did the delayed entry program. His offense was possession of child pornography and distribution. And he had, done one tour in Iraq, and anyway, so this happened after that when he came home. So he was adjudicated in the military system, which is a whole different animal all by itself, because they have such a different way of doing anything. He took a 4-year plea deal, and he was in the brig at Camp Pendleton for 357 days before he was adjudicated. And so at that point, he went to the Miramar brig, which is supposed to be the military special facility for counseling, for treatment programs for people in the military. And I know that when he left there, they were building a new wing, and the way the military's been going for some time now, they probably built more. But anyway, that's how I got in this fight, I call it. And in my bio, I think I said something about the fact that I was talking with a fellow person from church that I used to go to church with, and in a grocery store not too long ago, and his son was adjudicated for shaking his child, and the child passed away. Okay, so he's incarcerated for that. And the dad's name is Brian. We were standing talking, and he knows about my advocacy, and he doesn't really advocate like I do, but he knows all about it. And of course, he knows my son, and both my sons actually. So anyway, and toward the end of the conversation, he said, "Wow," he said, "I guess we're in a place we would have never chosen to be." And I mean, I just stopped and looked at him and go, "Yeah," and he said, "We were chosen for this," and I go, I had to think about that for a minute. So anyway, but when you look at the things that have fallen into place with Women Against the Registry, you do have to wonder, because we've been around for 3 years. We were organized out of an RSOL conference in St. Louis, where I live, in 2011. They held a workshop and did a presentation on the concept of Women Against the Registry, and it was going to be a larger organization. And they wanted to see if there was enough female interest, since it was going to be Women Against the Registry. They were looking to see if there was enough female interest to go and start organizing and go forward with this. And of course there was, and before that even transpired, I was asked which one I wanted to be involved with, the foundation, the whatever. And I said to the guy that showed me the org chart, I said, "I want the advocacy." And he said, "That's what I thought." So I am definitely an advocate. So, and you'll see a little bit of that. Okay, so that's how I got into it. And in war, this is on our website, but in war we believe that all children have the right to grow up and safe from harm. Okay, and when somebody looks at that, they'll go, yeah, that's right. No, I said all. I said all. That means registrants' children too. Okay, and the studies that have been done do not, it's not an all situation. So that's why we highlight the all, because we have situations where kids are bullied, they're ostracized. We have had all kinds of situations. Maybe a well-meaning teacher who was trying to tell the students, printed out. This is an actual story that printed out somebody's bio, from the sex offender registry. Put it up in her class just to try to show the kids this is what this is a registrant sex offender. We don't call them sex offenders, call them registrants. This is a registrant, and you need to be careful of this person. Well, guess what? One of the girls recognized the guy and said, "Oh, isn't that your dad?" Mm-hmm. It was a girl in the class. It was her dad. So, I mean, she was traumatized. Just if she could have died right then, she would have, would willingly died. But that's the kind of thing that people that are well-meaning and they don't realize how far that can reach. Okay, so that's what when we say all children have the right to grow up safe from harm. And I'll say this again probably several times before I'm done, but whenever there's a public registry and when a registrant's address is listed on that public registry, that puts everyone who resides there in harm's way. Okay, and I will have, a few more stories to speak about with that. Okay, we also believe that all families have the right to healing where there's pain. So we understand that there's victim pain, there's victims, and of course there's a debate about whether there's real victims when it comes to child pornography, and you'll hear both sides of that. And to me, it really doesn't matter because it is what it is, and there's nothing I can do about how it's interpreted today. But anyway, so but we do think that our families are overlooked. They're totally discarded. So we're bringing awareness to that. And one thing, one thing that we will talk more about in the coming months is restorative justice. Because restorative justice, how many of you have heard of restorative justice? Okay. And there are some folks that are in restorative justice that don't really acknowledge a need for restorative justice where there's been sexual offenses. But since that is the focus right now and has been for a long time, why wouldn't it be the place where there's healing? But the victims have the victim rights group, okay? We have nobody that will counsel and help a family through this situation. Okay, so that's where we feel like we have a right to heal also. And so we're trying to collaborate with some organizations that do that. And as a matter of fact, being from Missouri, I have a list of all the organizations across Missouri, and we'll be contacting them probably in the next month or two to try to set up meetings with them, introduce ourselves, say, this is what we'd like to bring to the table. Okay, and we do believe that communities have the right to laws and policies which actually work to achieve these goals. And, how many believe that the laws as we have them today actually make the public safer? Nobody. Nobody that has been in this movement for very long or anybody that has done any research knows better. Okay, so, but we do believe that everybody has a right to laws and policies at work. Okay, so again, placing a family on a publicized registry is demonstrably ineffective in protecting children or women from harm. So, and we do advocate, it sounds like we just advocate for against child sexual violence, but we, of course, advocate against any type of violence, whether sexual violence, whether it be directed at men, women, or children. It all goes together. Okay, families and whole communities are subjected to vulnerability and devastation when legislators continue passing knee-jerk laws. So, what we do as part of our advocacy, when we activate a group in a state, we try to get the people in the state on a phone call, and we try to have them at their computer. And we show them how to log on to their General Assembly website. A lot of people have never done that. Okay, here's how you find out who your legislator is. This is how you find out, what the statutes are, what the laws are. And especially just before the legislators go back into session, we teach them how to look at the pre-filed bills because they can start pre-filing a month before the legislative session starts. And once they get them submitted and numbered, then you can usually see a copy of them. So you know if there's something we would support or not support. And the most effective way of fighting a bill is to kill it before it goes to committee. Usually the process is they read it once, they read it twice, then they send it to the appropriate committee. And of course, ours would be the Judicial Committee or Public Safety Committee, depending on which House or Senate. That's the best way to get rid of a bad bill. And there are some bills that we support because they're good, productive bills. But that's what we do, and we teach people to do that and become advocates. So, the reason for that is we want to stop the punitive punishment. And I can't help if the Supreme Court doesn't see it as punitive, it is. And they will eventually see it as punitive. But so it's to get the laws stopped. And like in Illinois this past year, they didn't pass one punitive bill against registrants. So that's good. And I think there's at least one other state, maybe two, that they didn't do that. So then once we get them stopped, then we start pushing back on them and saying, okay, this is what you're doing to our families, that kind of thing. So the devastation, I don't even really have a good feel as to whether the legislators genuinely know the devastation, but they will. Okay, so given appropriate treatment and a stable, supportive environment, most people on the registry will not reoffend. And this is something really important if you're talking to people or if you're writing to a legislator or if you're commenting on an article. I say commenting on an article is free advertisement for us, for sure. But the professionals say that in order for someone to successfully reintegrate into society, they need a job, they need a place to live, and they need a positive support system. Okay, so that helps. But there's so many barriers with our people, as we all know, that's not allowed to our families. Okay. What we believe, if they could safely get treatment at the first sign of trouble, many could avoid offending in the first place. And there is some debate out that I have read, where some kind of intervention program should take place, and I firmly believe that. I think we have to be careful about that, as that it would be misinterpreted, like we don't want people prosecuted. But for instance, there's a lady that's in our movement. She was a teacher, and she was a special ed teacher. And she had an 8-year-old walk up to her one day and said, Mrs. Schaff, what would happen if somebody said something about their dad, touching them, bothering them, whatever? And she said, well, if that was happening in a family, then we would get that addressed, and they would go to jail, and that would never happen again. And the little girl looked at her and went, And she said, why, do you have something to tell me? And she said, no. So what does that say to us? She didn't want her dad to go to prison. She did not want her family to be broke up. She wanted it to stop. She wanted a family, but she didn't want to suffer anymore. So, but what have we done? We've gone in the opposite direction, and we've made everybody but the trash haulers mandated reporters. And they feel like if they don't report something, they're going to get in trouble and all that. So we have not done anything to help the situation, to stop the abuse. And anybody who's been in advocacy very long knows that the study that we rely on a lot by the Bureau of Justice Statistics talks about the fact that, and this is where the public misquotes it, the rearrest rate for another sexual conviction or a sexual crime is 5.3%. But the conviction rate for another sexual crime is 3.5% of the group that they studied. And it was over 9,000 people, and that's the largest study that I'm aware of. One thing I learned from Chrysanthi Leon yesterday, because we went over to another location to be interviewed, and she said there's like 80 years of recidivism studies. And I said, wow. And she's supposed to send me some of that stuff. I never knew there was 80 years of recidivism. I mean, but the thing is, it's little pockets of recidivism studies. Now, one thing one flaw, well, it's not one flaw, with the Adam Walsh Act, okay, they mandated that all the states have to go into compliance with the Adam Walsh Act, Title I, which is SORNA, or they lose 10% of their burn fund grant money. And they passed that in 2006. Everybody had 2 years to do it. 17 states have done it. Some tribes and whatever have done it, but 17 states. But I'm still puzzled about why, if they wanted to spend that much money and tell the states they had to spend that much money, why didn't they mandate a recidivism study annually?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I don't get that. One of the words that I like to use is annihilate. It annihilates our families. It just, and if you've lived through it, or if you're living through it, you know what that is all about. Okay. But anyway, so I was interested in what Chrysanthi said. But they mandated all these people. A lot of people won't go on on SORNA, Adam Walsh Act, because they don't want to put juveniles on the registry, and they don't want to go ex post facto, which means people that were adjudicated a long time ago, ring them up, put them on the registry, and we know of cases where that's happened, and these people have lost their job, they've lost their family because the wife says, I'm out of here. I'm not putting up with this because, I didn't know. I knew this when we got married, but I didn't know what we were going to be going through today. So it's devastating. And the state of Missouri went SORNA compliant in 2011, and they slip it in there so easily you don't even know, because they're preparing. One thing that we saw them do, which one of our registrants caught, was they went from a 1-page registration form to 3 pages. And everybody that didn't know just went through there, yeah, I have a boat. Yeah, I have an airplane. Like, what? But one guy that knew put NA. And then he sent me a copy, and he sent another leader a copy and said, did you guys know they're doing this? And so I called the Attorney General's office. And I said, what's the deal? Why are you doing this? That's not part of what they're supposed to report. Well, and of course, then the Attorney General's office turned it around. They have this little, catch-all clause that they can do whatever they deem necessary to keep the public safe. So that was their answer. But anyway, so we think that we need to be a little bit smarter about, what we do. We do believe that people, and I've had people say, so you think that sex offenders should be, just allowed to do what they want to do? I said, no, I didn't say that. Never said that. That we believe that a registrant or a person should be adjudicated, pay their debt to society, and once they're living a law-abiding life, they should be able to live a law-abiding life. If you, the registry was initiated as a law enforcement tool. It is expanded and just blown totally out of proportion. Okay, and if you went back to law enforcement, they can look you up when they run you. They can tell, and in some states, they can actually they have a marking on their license. On their driver's license, and I think there might be 1 or 2 states that even have it on their license plate. I'm not sure. But anyway, so there are ways of doing this without just annihilating families. Okay. And we do say, and we say this on our website, because this is exactly where this comes from, we do believe that there are some people that should be monitored. There are some people that are not going to change. But they need to be monitored, and that needs to happen through a judicial process involving a judge, somebody that's not going to benefit from counseling someone forever and that kind of thing, and for an appropriate period. Okay. But however, the people that, most of these people do not present a risk to their communities. The general public gains no advantage by knowing the names and locations of these lower risk registrants. And my son, it was, we're from Missouri. In Missouri, they list the the business name, the business address, and he got a job, and, that you just sit there like, okay, how long is it going to be before somebody says something? And another thing that I have not heard anybody say is, what about if I saw that somebody was on the registry and said, okay, I've got a grievance against those people. And so I take my kid or whatever, into a restaurant and say, oh, this guy did, he did this, whatever, and got him in trouble, knowing what kind of trouble I was going to be getting him in. So that's another bad thing about it. And the last thing on this PowerPoint is, as I said, there are some people that are not going to change. The true predatory rapist who has no motivation to change should be monitored. Okay, our mission. This is the part I like.
Are you, these things you're talking about here, are they on your site?
Yes. This is copied right off of our site. It's it's under About Us. It's not on the landing page. It's on the next page and whatever. Okay, through peaceful demonstrations, educational forums, and political events, we will present compelling evidence of the dangers and damage to the American society caused by excessive and conscionable sex offense registries. And I'm all about protesting. I've done it by myself, and I have been slammed by some of the other people that I did it with. That last year, during March is Child Abuse Prevention Month, okay? And so I saw some kind of, somebody sent it to me from California. Saw this thing, and they sent it to me. They said, did you know there's going to be, a group that's going to, hold a rally, whatever? And I said, oh, no, I didn't. So here I go. Down there, and it's at the Thomas Eagleton Federal Building, downtown St. Louis. And I go, and I didn't take my banner, my big banner, but I took a piece of cardboard or corrugated board, and I had these different statistics and had this stuff on it. I went down there. Well, some of these, there was probably about 7 people when I got down there, and I tried to tell the lady I was coming, but she didn't respond. Anyway, so some of them said, she didn't have a right to be here. What are you doing here? You're defending sex offenders. Nope. I'm actually advocating for the families. But I do believe that anybody that, been adjudicated, blah, 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 let them live their life with their family and all that. Well, my daughter was abused by, so-and-so. And I said, was so-and-so on a registry? No. That's our point. Well, you don't have a right to be here anyway. And the lady said, yes, she does. So anyway, I stayed I got there at 11, there were 7 there, I left at 1. There was maybe 20 people there, but they didn't have a big group. But anyway, and then I went downtown to the police headquarters one time when our governor was coming in, because he vetoed a bill. And we went down there with our banner that time and was interviewed by 2 stations. And one aired it. The one station is not friendly to registrants and whatever, so I knew they wouldn't air it. Anyway, but there was a police captain that came over. What are you guys? Well, who are you guys? Told them all about us, and said, he said, well, you know what? Police captain, right in front of police headquarters, waiting on the governor. And he said, I got a friend that I'd like to help.
Sorry?
He said, I got a friend I'd like to help. He's on the registry for child pornography, for possessing child pornography. And I said, that's what we're all about. Where, we believe that people should go on with their lives, whatever. And then one of the governor's people came out and he looked at me like, okay, what are you doing out here? What do you. But And the guy said, okay, I'm going to have to put 2 officers out here because, as you know, the governor's coming in. And I said, that's okay. It's for our protection, too, you know, if somebody didn't like us being here. They let us go out up to the press conference. This guy was so nice. It was my sister, who was sexually abused by our uncle in Memphis, who still lives there, was never adjudicated for anything he's done. Another person, and the other person has a son that was on probation and couldn't be on, and they let us go up there and then thanked us for being so respectful and everything. And the governor knew we were there. So it's like, sorry, Jay Nixon. Anyway, so that's the kind of thing that we do. And we've got to stand up, and we've got to get people to stand up and use their voices. Okay, so I'm going to jump on. And to me, this is important. You know, as a registrant or a registrant family, where do you live? Do you live in the past? Do you live in the present? Or in the future? Okay? And the benefits of living in the past, there are none. I haven't found one yet. Okay? And it's better to visit than to reside in the past. Okay? And I had and what do I mean by visit? I had, when I was going through my divorce, a girlfriend of mine from church, we went to lunch one Sunday, and she was just devastated because her husband decided he didn't want to be married anymore. And we're talking, you know, blah, blah, blah. And she said, how do you keep from thinking about this all the time? You know, playing it over in your mind. And I said, here's what I've come up with. I said, if it comes to my mind, I'll think about it for a few minutes, and then I snap my finger. And when I snap my finger, that means I have to start thinking about something else and something more positive. And she said, really? I said, yeah. Didn't have to pay for that. So anyway. So, yeah, so that's what I mean by there's no benefit to it. And why is it important to assess where you are? Because, you know, as a registrant, your family is always going to be aware of where you are, you know, mentally, emotionally. I know I do that with my son. You know, like, where is it? What's going on? You know, that kind of thing. So it affects everything about your family and your individual self. Okay, and the past, we've used this for a long time. The past does not define you. Okay, to live in the present, there's fewer negative emotions. The clutter of the past doesn't weigh you down and drain you. Okay, and you use less mental and physical energy. And you know, a stressful situation just, you know, your energy's just gone at the end of the day, every day, if you do it, you know, let it do it all the time. Don't allow the past or the public to envelop your family. Okay, you just can't let it happen. Okay, above all, expect good things. And I've had people look at me like, are you kidding me? No, I'm not. I don't kid. I play around, but I don't kid. Okay, the benefits of living in the future. It should be our destination. Okay? It should be the place where you feel like you're entitled to live. It's your civil and human rights. Okay? So, on the past, we run a support hotline. I take a lot of the calls. And one of the things that I get, and I have enjoyed working this so much because I've learned so much, and but one of the things that I just like is when somebody calls and says, well, I was accused of this, but I didn't do it. You know, and I know that is possible, and I know it is, but you know, if you did it, own it, okay? If you didn't, then do what you can to fight. If you took a plea deal, I feel sorry for people that take a plea deal and it comes out that they didn't do it and somebody wants to recant, because a lot of times that doesn't help. Okay, live in the future and then build what's missing to live in the future. Okay, and I'm going to show you a little bit about the impact on our families with residency restrictions. 44% of the families interviewed found it difficult to find housing. 28% experienced a landlord refusing, sorry, I'm in your way, aren't I?
No, it's the microphone.
Oh, the landlord refusing to rent due to a family member being on the registry. Okay, I know a guy that just moved from Missouri to another state and told me that he went through 110 applications before he found some place that would accept him. And that can be draining. And if you're doing it by yourself, it is really takes a toll on you. Okay, and 18% experience a landlord refusing a new lease. Landlords get pressured, okay? And if they started getting feedback, they start worrying about their income, you know, and being able to pay a mortgage if they've got it on an apartment building or whatever. 15% of the families had to move because they wanted the family to be together. And I'm so encouraged when that happens, when people can do that, because it's so important to have the family together as much as you can. 33% were unable to live with their partners, okay, because they couldn't, because of, you know, children being on probation, you know, that kind of thing. So they've had to pay 2 rents or 1 mortgage, 1 rent, and that kind of thing, and that is an additional burden. Now, if you're trying to restore a family, then you need to restore the family, you know, and it brings back a story that I saw on Anderson Cooper when he had his daytime show, because there was a couple of our registrants went there to be interviewed and all this stuff, and they just, boy, they ambushed them really bad. And before they came out, Anderson Cooper said, you know, a day in the mind of a sex offender or something like that. And they didn't know they were going to go with that title. So anyway, there is a family in the state of Georgia. They sold their house, moved to a condo. Okay, the condo, the PO came to do a visit. Okay, well, guess what that did to the neighbors? Freaked them out. Okay, so they started, you know, we got to get him out of here. So they went and filed for a TRO, temporary restraining order, to get him out of there. Okay, and the wife is just panicking. Supposedly it's in her name, but he's on some piece of the documentation. That's what she says. But anyway, and so the hearing is Monday in this court in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm trying to get there, but getting, you know, airfare, and we operate on a small budget. But anyway, so, and they're to me, they're just so crazy. These people at this condo, they've told people, if you can't go to the hearing on Monday, you know, write out your statement, and we can have it notarized down in the lobby, and we'll take it with us. There's going to be a bus. We're taking a busload of people down there and everything. And I think that's just over the top. Okay, but she's worried. They've got an attorney, and one of the things that people do when they hire an attorney is they don't hire somebody that is knowledgeable in sexual crimes, sexual offenses. Okay, and I'm not saying other attorneys are not good. I'm just saying the ones that are in this issue are kind of a little bit ahead of the others. Okay, so she doesn't know how it's going to come out. She says, I don't know what we're going to do. If we can't live in the condo, we've already sold our house, so that will, I don't know if they'll, and we did send an email to all of the Georgia legislators this morning telling them about it. We didn't ask for any action, but we did because we do have an Operation Pushback that we started. War started Operation Pushback 2014. We take one state a week, and we send out a press release to the media, and that's print media and television media. We send a separate release out to all of the legislators, and in that we kind of adapt them a little bit differently, but in that we give them some statistics that can be used nationwide. We give them some figures in their state if we can find recidivism or something like that, and we tell them who we are. and who we advocate for. Okay, we do that once a week, and we'll be done by the end of the year. We will have covered, and we had our members help us populate this database with every media, and people are just blown away. You did what? But we did that. We got every media, and we, if we don't have the legislators by the time we build that database, guess what we do? So we already had Georgia because we did one. So we sent that to them, and we'll see if we get any feedback from them. Okay. The benefits of advocating on this issue. Well, the first thing it does is change your focus. You know, it's like, you know, you feel like, woe is me, and I'm down, or whatever, and then you meet somebody else, and they're like, their situation is maybe worse than yours, so you maybe can go over here and do something to help them. But this changes your focus, and it encourages you to learn, okay? The support line that we have, we run it, we expanded the hours, we took it from SOSN. We run it from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. And we get calls for, we've made about 6 categories. We get calls for jobs, help finding a job, help finding housing, help with legal advice. We don't have any legal advice, no counsel. A support group. Or sometimes people just need to talk. And here's what I found, and this is the part that makes it worth it for me. I've answered the call, and there's been a crying gentleman on the phone. And he said, I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't handle this anymore. You know, blah, 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 blah. And my family this, my, you know, whatever. And you talk to them for an hour, sometimes 2, you know. You listen, you talk to them, you tell them, you know, we're out here, we're trying to make a difference, we're trying to help. And when they get off the phone, they have a different, they're uplifted, and they feel a little bit of hope, and that's what we're trying to help them to feel, a little bit of hope. But so it's, you know, advocating is therapeutic, because, you know, anybody that's in this advocacy knows, you know, when you get involved in it, then it helps you to process what you've been through. So it's important, and it adds leverage to our movement, okay? Because every person that gets involved and starts, and this is one of my goals for when we took over the SOSN hotline. We'll take the calls. We'll do that gladly. We track them, but we're going to turn as many of those people into advocates as we can, because there's only so many of us, and you know, we've got, it was 769,000 men, women, and children, according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That was in December. They update their database December and June. So they just updated it June 3rd or whatever. And I think it's 799,000. Okay. So they updated, and by my estimate, I estimate that within 8 years, there will be 1 million registrants. What's that going to mean? It's going to mean totally useless, you know. So anyway, that's my estimate. Okay, it provides us an opportunity to network with other like-minded organizations, and we do that. We're also working on a collaboration effort where we come up with what's called a boilerplate. And you might know what that means, but it's a boilerplate where it'll have some stuff on there that's common to anybody that's going to be involved, but there'll be little sections where an organization can input their data. Okay, but it will go out to all these from all these organizations to whatever, you know, wherever it needs to go. So we're working on that, on collaborating. And one of the ladies that's helping us do this, has been in media for years and years, and is out of Arkansas. Okay, so it allows you to be engaged and informed. One thing that I've noticed from going to, because in Missouri we had a lobbyist, we had a bill, we've had bills for 3 years, And I've noticed that when stuff goes to committee and you're there, and they brought some victims' rights people through one time, and it's like, I'm sitting and I'm looking at Phil Taylor, who's here, and they brought him in, we brought him in, Sherry brought him in, to testify about risk assessment, that you could do a risk assessment for $300, and we were wanting the registrants to pay for it. Okay, and so I'm sitting there by Phil and we're listening, and this girl was saying, and I said, where is she getting those figures? And Phil goes, I don't know. But see, the legislators don't know this. They don't know that she's spouting off stuff she has no knowledge of. But anyway, so there's a couple of them that I can't wait to meet because I'm going to be on a panel in September, and I'm definitely going to challenge them. But anyway, so there's value in knowing this, doing all this research and studies. We've got a lot of research that's already been done, so we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Okay, what does family advocacy look like? Okay, when families are unable to be together at their children's school graduation, then we advocate for repealing the residency restrictions. One case in point, we have a family in Rhode Island. The father was being prosecuted for, I think it was child pornography. They had an 11-year-old son. He was in public school. He started getting harassed and bullied and whatever. And so they decided to take him out of public school and take that stress off of him, put him in a Montessori school. He was there a couple of days. And then guess what happened? Yeah. They either the law enforcement or somebody notified the school, or a parent took it, they were doing the right thing, and they notified the school. Well, the director of the school made the mom come get him, and they had to pull him out of school. Okay, so where does this leave this child? He can't go to public school. He can't go to private school. Where does he fit in? So... and she's just beside herself. And guess who we told about that? The Rhode Island legislators. They need to know about it. And that's one thing that legislators have told us is we hear from the people that want more. They want their kids to be safe, but we think there's a miscommunication there. We've just figured this out, that when the news media runs something and it says sex offender, watch out, whatever, then the public goes to their legislators and they say, okay, we want our kids to be safe. To the legislator, that translates to more bills, more restrictions. But that's not necessarily what it means. And that's not what it should mean. It should mean we want prevention programs. You'd think we want to stop it in the first place, okay? And that open dialogue has got to start, okay? So that's where we think there's a disconnect, and we'll be pushing that this year and next year. So that's one of the things that we've run into. We've run into people, that they can't go to their son's baseball game because it's in a park, and you guys know all this, There was a lady that we were in touch with her. She was an ex-mayor in the state of Washington, and she was adjudicated something about a 14-year-old that went to her house to have her sign a petition. I guess there was more than a petition involved. And then she was adjudicated. She was petitioning the school district to let her go to her daughter's high school graduation. This was about 2-3 months ago when everybody's graduating. And they said no. And they delayed telling her until she couldn't do anything about it to challenge it. So she didn't get to go to her daughter's graduation. It wasn't her daughter's fault, And what's she going to do? Go to a graduation and molest somebody right there? Get real, But anyway, so that's the kind of things that we run into. Okay, and advocate for our voting block. And did I put that one up there? Yeah, there it is. Okay. And we just sent an email blast out, and we told people, vote. If you're not registered to vote, get registered. If you're a registrant or, whatever your status is in that arena, go down on this webpage and look and see what your voting rights are in your state and get registered to vote. And then we're going to teach people how to look up voting records for legislators. A lot of people don't even know how to do that. And we're going to also give people talking points to ask questions. And there's a lady sitting in the very back of the room that is awesome. But she's already on her own challenging legislators, sending them a letter or an email and say, where do you stand on this? But she doesn't tell them where she stands or whatever. She just asks them. And we know this is election year. We know that nobody's going to stand on that podium or next to that podium and say, I'm going to give registrants the vote. It's not going to happen, okay? So, but we can do these type things. We can tell them we're out here, we're watching you. And some people say, no, you don't want to do that. Oh, yes, we do. Yeah, we do. War doesn't play the political game. We just don't, We've seen people tell people, some people in other movements, things they wanted to hear, and then they go off and do what they want. Okay, well, that doesn't work for us. But anyway, another thing is to relay your family story to your state legislators. Now, one thing that we were told is that the legislators hear from the people that want more, but they don't hear from the registrant, and they don't hear from the registrant family. So they think they're doing the right thing, okay? So we've got to get people to contact their legislators, meet them in their home office, meet them in their state office, talk to them, and tell them what's happening. Okay, and when I say that family advocacy looks like a visible passion, I have been told, boy, you're passionate about this, aren't you? Yes, I am. And I've told people they're like nervous. One lady told me, she said, well, I'm just so nervous, and I'm not going to name the whole conversation. But I said, why? Did you do something wrong because we were going to a meeting? And she said, no. And I said, well, then you don't have to be nervous. You don't have to be scared. We're going to go in that place like we own it. And that's the approach you have to take, is that you have a right to be there. You have a right to live. And the whole, it's just your right. Okay, and you have to have a confidence that you're going to be heard, because if you come in there and you're all meek and mild, it just doesn't work very well. So you have to have the confidence that you're going to be heard. And sustained pressure advocacy. I ran across this some time ago, and I wrote this down, and it is so true. If you go on one demonstration and go home, the legislators can deal with that. They're okay with that, okay? But if you keep that pressure on, then that they start to listen, and it does make a difference. If you keep that going, then it will get their attention. And we were talking about doing a walk on Washington. People have been wanting to do this almost since I've been in the movement. Okay, and it's like, okay, when it comes down to it, we don't feel like we can get enough people, and it costs a lot of money to go to walk on Washington. But anyway, and this lady that's in media, we were talking with her about it, whatever, because you have to build a crescendo to this, And she said, let me tell you something. There's people that protest in Washington every day. All the time. They have marches, they have protests. People don't pay attention, So you've got to get your numbers, you've got to make this impact, and if we don't think we're going to get a bunch of people to go, then let's focus on something else. And that's the way it is, because people can't go for different reasons. But this sustained pressure is what we've got to keep in front of us. Okay. And I'm going to give you some sample. I don't know where we are on time.
We have about 20 minutes.
Ooh, okay. And this is some of the things that I presented at the Missouri Public Defender Training Conference that I did a couple months ago. And I gave them some samples of some of the calls that we get. Okay, and our support line calls, and everybody's name, a lot of the people have changed their name. Nobody has the same names. But this first one, I mean, people think they're doing something harmless, something that's going to stay between them, and then it just blows up. Okay, so and we're seeing more and more families, more and more females that are getting their kids taken away because they've either married a registrant, or they're dating a registrant, or living with a registrant. The family services people go in and yank their kids, and I think I've talked to about 5 families that's happened to. And in my opinion, this is easy. That's an easy job for the Child Protective Services people. All the paperwork's done. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to go out and find kids that's been beaten, battered, burned, whatever. It's all done for them. They can just, and if one of the other parent says, okay, well, I don't want my kids there because this guy's on the registry and he's going to harm them or whatever, and then they go in and they yank the kids, that kind of thing. So there's people, we've had requests for housing in the state of Illinois, and I just cringe when that goes on because there's no housing in Illinois. You can't find any housing. We had one lady get really mad with us, and I finally had to explain to her, we're doing everything we can to try to help you find housing for your brother because her mom was sick and they needed to get him out so he could spend time. And in the state of Illinois, their state is so screwed up that, and what they did was they revamped their child safe zones and all that. There's nowhere for registrants to come out and live. They have people that are staying incarcerated for 2 years of time that they could be out on probation because there's nowhere for them to go. There's nowhere for them to live. 3 years. I heard somebody say 3 years not too long ago. This lady got so mad at us, but we tried everything. We called different organizations. Sometimes we call John if it's somebody in Texas, see if he can help or whatever. But she got so mad at us, and I finally had to say, ma'am, we're volunteers and we're doing the best that we can, but Illinois is a state that's just horrible. But not too long ago, 17 prison reform groups filed a document with the Supreme Court, and I don't know what the legal term, I don't remember the legal term, and they said this has to change. This has to change because there's just, in the first place, Illinois, the financial state of Illinois, is such that they should not be incarcerating people and having the state to pay for it, that kind of thing. But anyway, so I talked a lot to the people when I went to the Wheaton College and talked to a lot of people from Illinois. They were acquainted with it. They knew. They also know about the situation that the registrants in Illinois, they go to register and they have certain days, certain times, and these guys will stand, and some, I don't know if it's the Chicago Tribune, did a story on this maybe a year ago, where these people would stand out in the cold waiting to get into the office to register, and at 3 o'clock they shut the door. And they either get charged with failure to register, or they have to take off work or something and come back again. And so, there's a lot of attention being brought to that. So we are about challenging the authority that some people assert. We're happy to challenge people. I pick up the phone when I see, or when somebody sends me something that says that the media is running this teaser or this or that. I will I will pick up the phone and call, like there was a station in Evansville, Indiana, that was running a teaser. One of our members sent it to us, whatever. And I called the producer at the station. And I got the lady that was doing the thing, and I said, well, nice talking to you, but I want to talk to your boss. And he called me back the next day, and we sat and talked for 20 minutes. And he said, I tell you what, okay, you have your people in our market area watch our program tonight, and if you don't feel that it's fair and balanced, then you write me a 70-second editorial, whatever you want to call it. And he said, and I'll read it on air. I said, okay, you got a deal. We wrote it. He read it 2 nights in a row. So you know. And I got a call once on the support line about this sheriff in Florida, Broward County, where they're so proud of putting metal signs in people's yards that say sexual predator lives here. This guy called and he said, you know, I guess I need help finding a job. He said, I got a job, and every time I get one, and I call the registry office and tell them, you know, that I've got a job and this is whatever. And he said, they either call or they go out there and I lose my job. So I said, okay, you know, what office is it? You know, who, you know, whatever. And I call, and one thing that I do when I call and I really enjoy is everybody, and I think I told John this, everybody that I talk to from the time they pick the phone up, I tell them who I am, what we do, what I'm calling about, and how stupid it is. But I don't say stupid. And I tell them about it. And I've done that with Attorney General's offices, talk to them about things that they've done. But I call this guy, and I finally get down to Deputy Dog, and I'm like, well, you know, we got a call from somebody, and I told them who I was, and they said that every time they get a job, that you guys go out and your deputy so-and-so goes out and just gets them fired. Well, I don't think that's happening. I said, I guarantee it is. He said, well, who is it? And I said, I'm not telling you. There's no way I would tell you. And he said, well, I don't think that's happening, but next time that happens, you let me know. I said, I will be the first to let you know. But see, and we got 10 minutes. Okay, hurry. Anyway, so they know we're out here, and they know we're pushing back. Okay, and so that's how we do the advocacy when we challenge people in that authority. Okay. Advocate for alternatives, and you guys have probably heard this before, but the U.S. has 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's incarcerated, okay? And so we've tried to, and of course, you know, the private prison industry is just making a killing off of us, and they have the contracts where they have to keep, if you sign a contract with some of those people, you have to agree to keep your beds 90% full. And then they have the lobbyists in Washington that they pay big bucks to, that go up there and they want more things added to the offenses that need to be incarcerated for. But anyway, and one of our alternatives that we've started talking about a little bit is, excuse me, pretrial diversion programs. They use those in drug offenses. Why don't they use them in sexual offenses? You know, I mean, there's varying degrees, just like there's varying degrees of drug offenses. So that's something that can be used and should be. And I talked a little bit a while ago about intervention, and that's something that we should talk more about and try to, you know, engage the people that can affect that.